Welcome this evening. My name is Casey Otis Cody, and I'm responsible for the Gleitsman Program in Leadership for Social Change. And really excited because tonight is the 5th year that I've had an opportunity to be part of this Gleitsman Award program here at Harvard, and special for a lot of reasons and special for different reasons every year. And I just wanted to say welcome to all of you tonight. And thank you so much for coming. It's so great to have such a full room. We're thrilled to have you all here and to honor, most importantly, Teresa Ulloa Ziáurriz as the 2011 Gleitsman International Activist Award winner. There will be a lot more applause this evening as well, I'm sure. But she's here tonight with her family from Mexico and with some of her co-workers from the Coalition Against Trafficking in Women. And I want to say welcome to all of you as well, because we really feel like you're our partners in this endeavor as well. And I'm sure that we all have kind of a collective appreciation for everything that Teresa does. Tonight is one of 9 events and conversations that we're holding over the next 2 days to showcase Teresa here at Harvard and around Cambridge. We'll be sending her home to Mexico exhausted, but hopefully with an appreciation for how much we value and want to learn from her efforts. I'd like to welcome 2 of our Gleitsman Award judges tonight as well. We don't often have judges here tonight, but Chris Maburu and Swanee Hunt are actually here tonight as well, and we're really excited to have them here to help us honor Teresa as well. I had a chance to enjoy breakfast with some of my colleagues with Teresa this morning, and I was struck by her ability to keep such a steadfast focus on saving victims of human trafficking, and also to be able to develop new strategies to respond to this ever-changing landscape, all at the same time. It's a rare occasion when somebody can do both of those things. And I'm so excited to hear more about her efforts here tonight, and can't wait to share her stories with you. The other kind of story that I've been telling people over the last day and a half is that we usually have 2 or 3 partners who help us put all these events together every year with our award winners. This year we have had 14 partner groups who have said, yes, we want to spend time with Teresa and learn about her experience. That has to be a record, certainly in the last 5 years that I've been working on this. So I wanted to just say thank you to all of you who are here tonight who have helped us organize these various events, and I wanted to just list those partner groups here. We have the Hunt Alternatives Fund and the Demand Abolition Program, the Harvard Kennedy School's Program on Human Trafficking and Modern Day Slavery at the Carr Center, CPL's Student Advisory Board, the Harvard Latino Students Association, the Women in Public Policy Program, the HKS Citizen, the Women and Gender Caucus, the Human Rights Professional Interest Council, the HKS Arts Committee, the Electoral Politics PIC, the Progressive Caucus Gender Committee, the Hispanic Latino Caucus, the Latin American Caucus, and the Harvard Journal of Hispanic Policy. And then to add to that, we also have partners here from the Divinity School tonight. So we really are kind of cross-Harvard, and it's just such an amazing thing for us to be doing. And I was also saying that a year and a half ago when we booked the space, we never in a million years would have predicted that we'd be honoring someone from Mexico on a holiday that honors the dead. You know, it's the Dia de los Muertos today, tomorrow in particular. And so we have kind of this other unique story going on here tonight, and our Harvard Latino Students Association has built an altar in here that I hope you'll all have a chance to stop by and take a look at after, that actually is in tribute to women and girls and victims of the senseless crime. So please stop by, take a look, and appreciate that as well. And one final note of thanks. This award event is a product of the efforts, as I mentioned, there's a lot of partner organizations, but some people here at CPL as well. In particular, Mike Lavariza and Louisa Pellerin, who both deserve special recognition for all of their hard work. So thank you both. And finally, the other person we have to thank is Alan Gleitsman, who is the kind benefactor, who's the visionary behind this Gleitsman Award program. Alan passed away in 2006 and left a very generous endowed gift to us here at the Kennedy School and to the Center for Public Leadership to continue his legacy and honoring these award winners, among other kind of programming. He started the program in 1989 and started giving out a Gleitsman Activist Award each year beginning in 1991, alternating between an international award and a citizen activist award for domestic activists. And with notable folks like Nelson Mandela and Muhammad Yunus, and really some esteemed company over the years of folks who have won this award. Alan somehow thought that the Kennedy School would be a great place to kind of continue on this project, and we've been really fortunate to be able to work on this for a number of years now, and to be able to kind of put the Harvard spin on something that a foundation had done for a long time. As you can see, we found some really new twists on an old topic. So, in fact, this is the first night tonight that we'll be doing this kind of moderated conversation, and I'm so excited about it. So in brief, the award recognizes someone and was basically created to kind of share the power of a single person and someone with heart and determination to show us all that they can bring about meaningful solutions to challenging societal problems. His favorite quote was from Robert F. Kennedy: "Few will have the greatness to bend history itself, but each of us can work to change a small portion of events, and in the total of all those acts will be written the history of this generation." I think that's very appropriate for this evening. On that note, I wanted to just say one more time, thank you to the Harvard Latino Students Association for all the help that you've done in helping us pull this panel together. And I wanted to welcome our participants for the evening. We have Harvard Divinity School Professor Davíd Carrasco, who's the Neil Rudenstein Professor of Study of Latin America. He has a joint appointment with the Department of Anthropology at the the Faculty of Arts and Sciences. He's going to leave us after the first portion of this panel tonight because there's another Dia de los Muertos event as well that he needs to participate in. And then Mary Setterholm, who's a student here at the Divinity School as well, pursuing a Master's of Divinity with an emphasis on pastoral care and counseling. She founded Serenity Sisters for women seeking to thrive beyond merely surviving trafficking, sexual trauma, or prostitution, which is her story, but not her identity. So thank you to both of you for agreeing to moderate this evening. And finally, thank you to Swanee Hunt, who will be helping us present the actual award to Teresa at the conclusion of this conversation. On that note, let me get out of the way and let the interesting portion of this continue on. And thank you to our moderators and to Swanee, and thank you all for joining us this evening.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction. I'm Davíd Carrasco from the Divinity School. And it's more than an honor for me to be here to sit next to not only courage, but wisdom. Something that I think is very important for us to think about on a day like this. This is, as has been said, the Dia de los Muertos. This is the days of the dead, today and tomorrow. In Mexico, the days of the dead are the days when you not only remember the dead, and I'm sure Teresa can be thinking of many of the women that she's helped and was not able to help, but you also invite them back. You invite their spirits to come back and to be in your presence. And I think that when we're in the presence of Teresa Ulloa, we're in the presence of not just an individual, but someone who has come to stand for a very profound collective struggle. And that is why I say that this is a moment and a person not only of courage, but it seems to me of great wisdom. It has been said about her, and I read to you, Miss Ulloa has had and continues to have an immeasurable impact on the lives of many throughout the world, and most especially women and children. Now, I've heard of people having impact. I've heard of people having a profound impact. But when you're with someone who's had an immeasurable impact, that says to me it's not somebody who just has impact today, but somebody, and especially through a wonderful award like this recognition, is going to have impact in the future, which I'm certain that she wants very much to have. But having this chance to dialogue with her, I come at the dialogue as a historian of religions, someone who's interested in origin stories. And so the question I'd like to ask you to begin the conversation is, how did this begin for you? Why did you choose the side of life over death? Why did you choose this? Was it someone? Was it some event that started you down this very hard-working road? Teresa.
This is a difficult question. I really could not be sure if it was because I had very strict father who was the father of my mother, or if it was because when I was a lawyer, I used to give consultancy to union trades. And one day, one group of women came to ask the union help because a group of little girls, like between 3 and 12 years old, have been raped in a multiple rape to the girls. And the union trade decided that the solidarity could be the help of the lawyer, and the lawyer was me. That changed my life completely, because that was my first approach to sexual violence. And I never came back to union trades. I remained here studying and trying to learn. And I became a real expert in sexual violence. I have represented more than 30,000, well, me and my team, not only me, 30,000 victims of rape, boys, girls, women, teenagers. And I also was able to do the linkage between discrimination and violence, sexual violence against women and girls. And that's how I arrived in New York to UN to present a shadow report. I don't know if it was around 1996 or something like that. And one of my ancestors and guides in this road contacted me. Dorchen Lakehoe asked me to become the representation of the coalition in Mexico. And I accepted because for me it was very easy to jump from sexual violence to trafficking and exploitation of prostitution and pornography. And not only children, but as well women, and all the violence involved in this. So I think I am part of my history, and I am a consequence of my history. And another big issue is that I am the mother now of a 21 years old girl, which is my driving motor that makes me try to have a better world for her and for all the girls in the world, the ones who come behind us.
Teresa, it is an incredible, actually immeasurable honor to be here, to have made it this far as a formerly prostituted woman who is now looking up because of faces of mercy. My daughters, I would describe you as mercy. I know it was said that courage, but for me and my sisters, it's mercy. All right, my question for you, and this is split in two parts, but it can just rest with one. It's feminism divided. This question focuses on the concept of agency, a woman's right to choose prostitution, or the new term sex work, as a profession. Recently you visited Canada, where this debate affirming the choice to be a prostituted woman led to successful challenges by civil libertarians against laws prohibiting prostitution. This is now under appeal. It would seem that the pro-choice argument, a woman's right to have agency over her body, is being deployed to confront elimination of prostitution. How do you enter this debate? What philosophical, ethical, and value-centric approach do you employ with this debate?
have been three legal and social scopes to deal with prostitution in the development of humanity. One is the prohibition that punished the women in prostitution, and luckily is the less used nowadays, although in Canada they use this approach. And the regulation of prostitution was an approach adopted by Germany and the Netherlands around 2000, and the abolitionists. That it was a movement that started just after the slavery was abolished in the history of the humanity. Immediately after, Catherine Barry started to fight to abolish prostitution because she considers it is a kind of slavery of women and girls. Nowadays, of course, we have to fight in the feminist movement between these two points of view. But I was asked this in the afternoon by the students, journalists, and I said something that for me is the key issue. First of all, what are the elements that conform consent? If it is hungry, or the need, or you have a lack of opportunities, or you have suffered previous experiences of violence or discrimination, then you are not fully consenting, and you are not in a free choice. And the other, which for me is the key issue, my liberty is limited by the other's liberty. And if I do something that will have a consequence in the lives and the bodies and the histories of other women and girls, then I'm not entitled to do so. And by the way, prostitution perpetuates stereotypes that reduces the bodies of women and girls to sexual objects, to commodities that could be accessed through two ways, through the money or through violence. And I think if you really know and are committed with the defense of human rights, this argument is ethical, is legally correct, and is also inspiring. I was telling the journalist at lunchtime that for me it's the same with drugs. Even now, everybody is discussing legalizing drugs. But at the end, we have to focus on the last actor of the complete change in exploitation, which is the demand side, and also in drugs. And they are being treated as poor little sick persons. We are going to take them very sweet. And all the people that is dying in my country because they are consuming, what is the responsibility of that last consumer? And in the sex industry, it is exactly the same.
We're here at the Center for Public Leadership Kennedy School, and one of the interests people have is about effective leadership in this struggle. You've obviously been identified as a leader. And we'd like to hear you talk a little bit about what is it that makes an effective leader in this struggle. Let me amplify the question a little bit. What kind of resistances, what are the most powerful resistances that you and this effort that you are leading and are a part of come up with this? And how do you deal with those resistance?
Economic interests, because this is a very profitable illegal industry that has the virtue to generate complicities and complicity networks between the political power and the economic power. So these are, and of course organized crime, the worst enemies, but also those who are consumers. And I was remembering this morning the first cases we took to court about domestic violence and how the judges were very reluctant to punish those battery of women. And at some point, I feel we are facing the same, because we have laws, are not the best laws, but we have to recognize now we have laws. But at some point, I feel like going back 20 years and trying that a judge punish himself for being the batterer of his women, now to a consumer when maybe he is a consumer. No? It's almost the same. It's an ethical issue for them.
All right, my next question is going to come from my heart, not reading from my tablet here. And it's about pornography. Being a good prostitute meant that you were immersed in pornography. You had to read it to keep up, if I can say this. You had to read it to keep up with the latest idiotic bitch dream, because that's exactly what you were. And you had to keep up with it to find out how to be safe. What was their fantasy, so that you could almost have a file in your mind asking them, what will it be? And then you knew how dangerous it could be, because you were on top of what was coming down, and it was absolutely getting more dangerous and frightening. Now there's a new term that's been coined, and it's the porno culture, which is extended beyond just pornography into the popular culture and influencing it. And I'm asking you how you see this big reach out into popular culture and how that is influencing the dialogue, the discourse about prostitution and how we see ourselves.
Of course, there have been an over-sexualization in the media of the bodies of women, even of girls. A lot of agencies that make ads use as now the bodies of little girls. For instance, there was a big campaign in Spain, so this Miss campaign of Gabbana child outfit. And luckily they got that. But up to now, what is selling to all of us TV? What is the real value of the feelings and of the women? Nothing. They don't worth nothing. They need to be only flesh and skinny flesh. And what we are transmitting to our girls is that they are worth if they are teeny and sexy and makeup. From there, young boys, 8 years old, start using pornography right now. And the pornography is the graphic representation of women in prostitution. And has an effect terrible just in the age they are starting to build their sexual identity. And what we have is that they become very frustrated if they do not have such a big penis as the one is shown in the pornography. And if they are not able to get a woman as the one they are seeing in pornography, of course, they will never get a woman like that because are like all implanted over here, change the nose or whatever. And that makes them very violent, very frustrated. And then they go to the paid sex to get out all that frustration. That's why it is becoming more and more and more dangerous. Because now you have the snuff pornography, but you also now have the vintage pornography, which is the most extreme mistreatment and torture against women. And boys are seeing this in the internet. And then they go to practice that with women, with human beings. So we have to stop this, because as well helps to perpetuate these stereotypes that reduce women and girls to commodities. And I know your question came from your heart, but I also want to answer not only from my heart, but from the heart of all my sisters in this struggle, my sisters in the coalition, that our organization is for those in situation of prostitution, is for the survivors, and maybe at some point we have the advantage to have the opportunity to talk. But we don't want to talk our words. We want to be your voice and the voices of our partners there. We have a wonderful woman who is our leader in Colombia. She was sold to a brothel when she was 11 years old. She was trafficked to USA and after to Europe. And now is working in the entrance to the Amazonian region, where the US government has 2 military bases, and where there are the guerrilla, the drug cartels, the paramilitaries, and the regular army, and she's rescuing women and girls there. And now she has a shelter, legal, counseling, all the necessary services for the victims rescue, 2 productive projects, 2 housing projects for the women, so they don't go back, because they have the need to feed their children. And also she developed a backyard economy projects for these women. And now she's determined to have a pasteurization plan, because she says, here in Colombia, we have the better milk. And Nestlé comes and takes all the milk and then send it back to us very expensive. She said, well, Beatriz is her name, is my inspiration. And I think I am her inspiration. It's how we do to be the cane or the supporting of those who need to speak. She said, I didn't went to school, you are better because you can write. And I said, yes, but you go to a better school, the school of life. And our organization is for you and for your partners, and because of you, and because of your partners, and because of the families that trust in us. So I feel the coalition, who is the oldest, no. The pioneer organization in the fight of trafficking and prostitution in the world is for these women, for the rights of these women, for their voices. And we will keep here and there and everywhere where there are women that need our hands and our hearts.
These stories that you tell raise up a lot of emotion in me and in the people who are here today. And you've talked eloquently about the struggle women have. What would you say to the men? What do the men have to learn to do to become aware of?
Inspired by one proposal of our branch in Asia Pacific, CAT Asia Pacific, they start organizing camps where they took boys to understand what is the role in the change of exploitation. We designed a model. The coalition, international, and all the branches, Europe, Africa, Asia Pacific, Oceania, Australia, and Latin America, have been fighting a lot to make visible the demand side. And the demand side, and in prostitution, what we will find is the sex expression of men and the sex pleasure of men, not of women. So that we need to change this and make visible this part of the demand. And be more rude with our governments because they sign and ratify the Palermo Protocol. And there in Article 9, Fraction 5, they sign they would take the legal measures and other kind of measures to reduce the demand. And talking about this, and coming from the developing Latin America, you know that we receive the greatest amount of sex tourists from USA? That they go where there is a lot of offer and they become the demand. And if they don't go there to pay dollars to have sex with children, with women, there would be no business for the drug cartels that now are operating trafficking and smuggling. Then I believe that it's much better to have consensual, informed, responsible sex relations that gives both parties in the sex relation pleasure. We are not talking from a moral point of view. We believe that pleasure is one of our rights in a sexual relation. And also to be like more responsible and informed. And then we are challenged because in the sexual education children are receiving in the schools, this sexual education is reduced to biological functions. So they never are teach about responsibility, about consensual, about information, about rights, about obligations. That's why I believe this has to be built in equality together, men and women, and with the right pleasure for both. That's it.
before we move to our question and answer forum. And that is to unpack further the concept confronting the demand for prostituted persons. Several anti-trafficking initiatives have been launched in the United States. One such high-profile campaign is Demand Abolition, led by former Ambassador Swanee Hunt, who will be presenting your award. And I quote, "Demand abolition believes that individuals who assume the right to purchase another human being fuel the market that traffickers and pimps supply with victims. Until demand for commercial sex is eliminated, the sexual enslavement of children, women, and sometimes men will continue." You spoke already about the need to educate the young adult males. I am wondering about other modes of best practices to deal with demand. Another issue is that it would seem that eliminating demand is more complicated than frontline solutions of prohibition, such as aggressive prosecution of buyers and shaming approaches. I'd like to hear what you think about even the younger ages. If girls are groomed at early ages to be sexual commodities, does it not follow that the boys are also gender socialized into demand for commoditized sex? Example, and this would happen, a young boy's visit to a prostitute as a rite of passage into adulthood. This is something that several of us experience, and these boys would be at like 12, 11, 12. And one was brought by a woman. So it is cultural, not just a male. It just seems to be that pervasive. So I'm wondering about how we can bring demand, re-education. I mean, re-education sexuality into even the younger ages beyond the biological description. Yes.
Yeah, I think that we have to educate inequality in the early childhood, and that girls and boys should learn at very early ages that they have rights, both of them, and also obligations. And we have a lot of instruments. We have developed even a cartoon for very early ages. But I believe the process of socialization of every human being starts at home. And at home we need to do things in equity, because we do not that. The examples will prevail over the words. But if we really commit with this new way of educating inequality, we can do like a revolution without arms and change from one generation to another to build a more equitable world and just world for women all over the world. And I think it has to start somewhere. And if each one of the ones who are here put a little effort, maybe we can get it. Hopefully be as an epidemic, so we can share this with others and others and others to make the change a reality.
Well, before we have the presentation of this award by Swanee Hunt, this is a good time to, I think, thank Teresa and Mary for sharing their lives and struggles with us, and then have a Q&A. So thank you very much.
Please step up to the mic. And if you don't, I have to. So we'll give it a minute.
is Davíd from Aberdeen School. I would like to ask, in your activities in fighting sexual harassment and human trafficking, how much impact could you say the internet has had in pushing us to where we are today?
A lot, a lot. I think internet is a big black hole, and that the cyberspace goes so quickly, and now children has access to it so early, and without any prevention measures, the laws never goes as fast as that black hole. And of course it has good things, but also has a lot of dangers for them. And there are no rules, and it goes faster than the legislators doing laws, and it's quite difficult to control. Once something is up in the cyberspace, who can stop that? Going around and around and around.
Buenas tardes, Teresa. I guess my question has a little bit to do more with your leadership position. Being in this field that is really tough for so long, where do you build your strength to keep fighting? For us that are somehow scared to enter such a field.
From the survivors, from the victims, from the families, and from my family, my working team at home, but mainly I have a wonderful set of inspirations that are the members and founders of the coalition, that are my ancestors, my inspiration, and with whom I cry when I feel alone, and who have the time to write and inspire me in every single line they write. And also in our executive director and the team in New York, who are so passionate about our work and have the patience to stand our hysteric moments, and as well to be looking for different alternatives to support our work in the field. Alone, you cannot do anything alone in this struggle. You need partnership. You need to be together, because the enemy is very powerful. And if they don't touch me yet, it's because I have this great organization behind me. Really, thank you to the coalition, and thank you for this award, because this will put a little bit more of light to our struggle.
Good evening, and thank you so much for your work. In your comments this evening, and also reflected in Ambassador Hunt's remarks, were reference to men and boys as victims of rape from time to time. I've come home recently from Uganda, where I lived for a few years, and where there's an immense problem of men raping men, essentially to control them. This is seen there, and certainly in areas that are experiencing violent conflict. I'm wondering, could you speak to that, any work you've been able to do on it, and any way that we could bring this issue to light, as men seem often ignored as victims of this problem?
More and more, boys, mainly boys and teenagers, are being victims of sexual violence, but mainly in cases of big disasters or in cases of armed conflicts. Because I call it because of the phallocentric syndrome, which puts the phallo in the center of the culture and as an arm of domination of women or of men. of girls or boys. Even if we revise the history of the wars, we will see that every time a group defeated another, what they do was to rape in front of the defeated their women, their girls, their boys, like a sign of supremacy against the defeated. That makes that the phallocentric syndrome, which is expressing what's happening in Uganda or in Rwanda, has to deal with power. And the key issue is how much has grown the number of men victims of all types of sexual violence, and that there are not public policies to cope these crimes, and there are no answers by the government, and they keep doing because of power and because of supremacy. How can we do to change power and supremacy to another world, to build a better world? And as I said before, each one of us has to put a little grain of sand to build a big mountain that stops all these kind of abuses, of violence expressions, and violation of human rights. Although I do not work a lot with men, I devoted much more my work to girls and women, because the greatest number of victims are there. So I work more for them.
Rather short. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I became familiar with your work through drug policy, which is my own field, but it seems that some of your greatest victories have come as the result of building coalitions of very diverse groups of professionals with a shared passion for change. I wondered if you'd be willing to speak to either some of the greatest hazards or some of the greatest payoffs that have come from trying to bring such a collection of experts in varied fields together.
They were already there. I am the new one. So it was great for me. I don't have to build that coalition. It was there. And it's a world coalition where you can find whatever you can imagine of knowledge, of sharing best practices, of at least listening to you when you are thinking you will never find the door out. So what I can do with pleasure is to introduce you some of them that are here with me.
Miller, and congratulations on your award. You are an inspiration to all of us. So my question is, I'm from Nicaragua, a Latina. So I wanted to know, looking at the different social stratas in our regions, whether you have found a denial of what is going on with human trafficking, or acceptance for your mission and in fact the reality of human trafficking.
Nicaragua, the government is not very committed to fight human trafficking, but we have tremendous leaders in grassroots, in the middle level, and in the high level, fighting with us. And soon, I think, I will have to go to talk with Ortega, and they participate in this project against the demand, where we train a lot of young men And they will continue the project now because they were called to do continuation with USAID funds. So soon I will be around again, and maybe I will have a long conversation with that president that is not very committed with women. You know, they criminalize even the therapeutic abortion in Nicaragua.
Question. I have a question. We're still open for the mic here. The term sex work as opposed to prostitution. How does this reframing prostitution into a labor issue change the debate? What are your thoughts about the very terms, prostituted woman versus sex worker, prostitute versus commercial sex worker?
Well, for me it is clear. There are the interests of the criminal groups, the organized crime, the thieves, the traffickers, that are after this vindication of prostitution as sex work. There are millions of dollars involved in this illegal business that damage so much the victims of this industry. For me, it is not an issue in discussion. As I said, you cannot consent and you cannot take advantage of your liberty if this will damage others. And this is the case. And they said there is 1% of the total population in sexual exploitation purpose. That is there voluntarily without a pimp, but how much could they damage the others that are there because they are very poor or because they have to give a quota to have the chance to see their children, or because so many causes, you know, because of the seduction, because they use seduction, because addictions, because a lot of reasons. I really believe that you cannot fight for prostitution be recognized as a job because all the damage that produces to women, and because there are two models that have been implemented, the Netherlands and German, and then the Swedish model. After 10 years, they have proved the legalization and consideration of prostitution as work in the Netherlands was a complete failure. The levels of trafficking increased a lot, and women from Netherlands, very few or no one was there in the famous Red District. And it was so true what I'm saying that the government of Amsterdam expropriated 28 squares from that district like 2 years ago. And they start building the corner or the district of fashion to take advantage of the windows. You know? And the Swedish model, which punished the demand with very little punishment, like six months, no jail, a fine, you know, but together with opportunities to victims and a big campaign in all schools with a wonderful film with a more holistic approach, doing prevention, protection, assistance to the victims. Now, after 10 years, has been evaluated, and they proved they reduced 70% trafficking to Sweden. So, what they do is to put or make visible the demand. We don't want to have the men in the jails, but we want them to be more responsible and to understand that women are not commodities that could be sent by or rented for a while.
Well, we are at a transition point, about to receive your award. I have one last question for you. I saved this for last. It is a message to our sisters. Those of us who found ourselves trapped and are stigmatized by trafficking and prostitution only reveal part of our experience. As often, we can barely tolerate the memories. So others mostly tell our stories. What words would you speak to us if this room were full of Serenity sisters, of women who've been trafficked, women who've come out of prostitution, not merely to survive, but who want to thrive? What would you say to us? I want to take a message back to my sisters from you, Teresa.
But for me, the first I want to share with them is that they are women. And for that only reason, they are entitled to rights. That the situation of prostitution was a temporal situation, but that they were like any other human being, or maybe more, because they have had the courage to come out. That we need to be supportive and ready to give them the hand at any moment when they decide to come out. And if they cannot say all the horror through and the violence they experienced while they were in prostitution, they need still to have counseling and to know that they count on us, on the coalition, on us as persons, and that they are not alone, and we'll be there every time they need.
Swanee Hunt, who will do the honors for you.
I'd like to also acknowledge Norma Ramos here, who is the head of
Directors, Jan Raymond and George Lightholm,
Please.
my teachers as well.
Please stand up for me. These are spectacular leaders of the Coalition Against Trafficking in Women, which is located in New York. Well, my sister, come over here. Here. Is this yours? Okay. So, there was an FBI agent in our home, and he told me a story. He said he was interviewing a pimp, and he said, so where do you find the girls? And the pimp said, well, I go to a shopping mall, and I look for a girl who's walking by herself, which is rather unusual. And I say to her, you have beautiful eyes. And if she looks me back in the face and says, thank you, then I just keep going. And I go up to the next girl and I look at her and I say, you have beautiful eyes. And if she stares at her shoes and says, no, I don't, I know I've got her. And I was thinking about that as you were speaking, because I got to look into your eyes. And I kept staring at your eyes. And I wanted to tell you what I saw. I saw beauty. I saw depth, wisdom, understanding, and I saw compassion. And I was really struck at the beginning when we were talking about the impact on women and girls. And there were then questions about the men, the buyers. And I think that if you were standing or sitting across from a group of buyers, that what you would see in terms of their lives is a coarsening of conscience. That you would see lives lived with shame. That you would see the destruction of their families and the pain that that has brought them, with their lives out of control. I want to thank you for that, and I want to say that this award, you know what I love about it? It turns the world upside down. And that's what you're doing. You know, you called for something that was that big. You said the vision has to be that we turn this upside down, and we do it with compassion and understanding, and not demonizing, but being firm in the support and the protection. And so when you see this award, I hope that it will also give you a chance to stop and think. And perhaps you'll even look down at your shoes and you'll find wings on your heels. So congratulations.
Only 4 pages. I want to thank the members of the jury and the Center for Public Youth Leadership at Harvard Kennedy School for the 2011 Gleitsman International Activist Award. But I also want to thank to each one of those that nominated me. Cory, who did a great job even without any help on my part. Norma, our executive director, that she did so much so that I could be here today. Dorchen and Jan, our ancestors and writers of a lot of letters recommending Teresa for this award. all of them partners in our struggle at CATW, for trusting me and all the work this nomination represents. I am the mother of the 21-year-old girl who has been the driving motivation behind my work to end all forms of violence against women, including the over-sexualization and commercial sexual exploitation of women and girls. I dream that my work will contribute to taking on the normalization, glorification, and culture of acceptance of violence against women to create a better world for women and girls worldwide. I have devoted my life to fight for human rights, especially to fight violence against women, and since 20 years ago, trafficking in women and children for commercial sexual exploitation. For over 40 years, I have worked to empower and defend women in obtaining their rights and represented victims of sexual violence. Often, I work at great personal risk and that of my family to end sex trafficking throughout Latin America and the Caribbean, especially in Mexico, where the drug cartels are the main actors of this crime in this illegal industry. In my work, I take a holistic approach to try to create the legal, political, and social conditions that are inhospitable to human trafficking. I use my knowledge and experience to design and implement numerous innovative campaigns and training models for prevention, to protect and assist victims, to prosecute traffickers, to train law enforcement, and to educate young boys and girls, amongst others. Inspired by our sisters of CAT Asia Pacific, I designed a model targeting young males to reduce the demand for commercial sex. This model, the first one of its kind to educate young men and boys about the construction of traditional masculinity and the consequences of the demand for commercial sex, promotes an alternative conception of male sexuality based on equal human rights. This model has been implemented in Mexico, Argentina, Ecuador, Nicaragua, Guatemala, Peru, Panama, Chile, Colombia, and the Dominican Republic. Today, we have built a network of near 400 organizations in 25 countries in the LAC region, where the rate of organized crime and trafficking in persons is staggering, and the corruption of governmental institutions and law enforcement is pervasive. Hundreds of women and children are being reported as disappeared or live in continual fear. Through our work, we have rescued more than 899 women and children from internal and international sex trafficking through the Red Alert system that we founded 5 years ago. Still, we have a lot of overwhelming challenges, some of which could be summarized as war and all the violence against women and girls involved in military and paramilitary activities, rape, sexual violence, displacement, death, hunger, the abuse of power for humiliating the mothers, wives, daughters, and sisters of the one defeated, the sexual abuses and prostitution promoted and imposed by the armed groups, regular and irregular armed groups, both. We look forward for peace above economic and political interest. We look forward for the rule of law and the rule of human rights. Gender discrimination, this discrimination that kills thousands of girls before they are born or even when they are given birth. They are condemned to lack of opportunities, to gender violence, exploitation, malnutrition, marginalization, inequality, and to traditional practices prejudicial to their bodies and their human dignity, as paid bribes. Poverty and extreme poverty, the feminization of poverty, is becoming a witness of injustice for a little more than a half of the world population. We urge its abolition. Gender violence, that violence exercised against women and girls in the private and the public spheres everywhere. Women and girls are everyday raped at home, where they should have guaranteed the right to life, to their personal integrity and security. Women and even girls are murdered every day in the midst of impunity. Collective security is an impossibility if personal security and integrity is no guarantee for women and girls. We have the right to be a priority in the international cooperation agenda, in the development efforts, and in the fight against poverty, in natural disasters, in education, in health, in the protection of our human rights, but as well in the national security issues, in war and in peace, in the efforts against terrorism, and in the fight against organized crime. Today, as Mother Teresa of Calcutta said, I have a more wrinkled skin and white hair, but I am with the same strength and conviction, or perhaps more, with the same obstinacy. I am sure that behind every finish line there has been and will be another starting one, that behind every achievement there has been and will continue to be another challenge. Although some expect I quit, I will continue until my last breath, despite the obstacles, the few financing, and persistence of patriarchy. We are encouraged by the hope of the totality of our efforts to build a world without violence or discrimination against women, more just, without poverty, without exclusion, in which human rights are not only declared, but are justiciable and enforceable. We commit to continue fighting against trafficking and sexual exploitation of women and girls, and all the violence and humiliation that it causes them, to prevent it, to protect and assist victims, and to pursue punishing for traffickers, organized crime, and the demand involved in this terrible form of modern slavery. Words are inadequate to thank each and every one women and families who have entrusted their cases, their stories, their lives, their liberty to us, to whom we have trained and helped to empower. I want as well to thank all organizations, sisters and partners who have joined us in our struggles, who have nourished us with their teachings, their support, and their inspiration. The list is endless. Because of them, we are here. And with them, we will keep fighting, because the path is still long to achieve our dreams. This distinction is not only for me, it is for them and for my family, my feminist husband and partner, my sharing sister, and my exceptional son, but especially for Graciela, my daughter, and inspiration. And for my tireless team, because they are the reason, the substance, and essence of who I am and what I will continue to be. I renew today, and before all of you, my commitment to fight for abolishing prostitution, trafficking with sexual exploitation purposes, and to make the demand visible and subjected to the rule of law, because without demand there will be no supply. The lives and bodies of our sisters, mothers, daughters are not commodities. This award is for you, the board of directors of the coalition, but also the New York team. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for those meaningful words, Teresa. We're so honored again to have you here. In closing, our Center for Public Leadership Director, Davíd is here just to say a few words in closing. And I would also, in a more practical matter, encourage you all to grab some food when we're finished as well. So thank you.
Teresa, I think that you can tell how much you've touched the hearts of everyone here. And we're deeply inspired by you. And it's our hope that we can continue to work with you as we talked earlier today. I hope there are ways our center can be a partner with you and helping you. You have to raise money. You have to widen the circle of people who understand. You have to help people understand this is not just an issue about women. This is an issue for men as well. We thought we had banned slave trafficking some 200 years ago in the Western Hemisphere, and to learn, as I did today, that there are still some 500,000 a year, you thought, women who were forced into slavery. It's just morally unacceptable, and nothing could be happier. Nothing could make us prouder than to work with you. This is the beginning, I hope, not the end of our relationship. I can also tell you that Alan Gleitsman would have been just delighted and very proud of this moment. Alan and his partner, Cherie Roche, were very committed over the years to honoring activists, social change agents in this country in 1 year and then internationally another year. And they became engaged at the Kennedy School several years before Alan died, and located their efforts at our center. And Alan left a bequest of over $20 million to the center for a variety of programs in his name. And this is the one that we're so proud of, because it allowed us to honor you. We also have Gleitsman Fellows here at the university now, who are people on scholarship who are recognized for their promise for social change. We have a variety of research and teaching programs that are underway as a result of that. But Alan cared so much about this, and he used to come to the school on a regular basis with Cherie and help out with these awards. I remember we had a glorious time in this room. A few years ago, we had a picture in our center walls of the two of them together. But there have been this stream, but no one has made us prouder than you have tonight. And I know that you and Swanee have had a chance now to spend time together, and you and Casey, and you and students and others. Look to Swanee. She is a wonderful partner. She's a force of nature in this community, as everyone who's worked with or had the privilege of working with Swanee knows. And I'm so glad that your paths have now crossed and intersected in a closer way as well. That's important. We love Swanee as a member of this community. So this has been a wonderful evening, and I want to thank all of you for participating in this. I think one of the glories of this university and here at the County School of the Center is that we have the opportunity from time to time to have our eyes open, have our hearts open to what's possible and the struggles that are out there for so many. And no struggle is more important. And 500,000 a year. Just think about that number. That's an incredible number. Incredible number. We need to end it. Thank you.